think there's so much growth and opportunity for content folks.
There's greater emphasis now on people in content roles. CMOs are seeing they're going to have more content creators in their organizations.
There's so many avenues that you can go down, so many paths you can take.
We've just finished one of the most important pieces of research that I think we've done in our history.
We are so excited to release the first ever Content Marketing Careers and Salary Outlook. We really wanted to dive deep into key issues for content marketers, like work-life satisfaction, career development, and pay expectations.
I think one of the most positive things that came out of the salary survey was how satisfied we are in content marketing as a practice and how successful we feel at it.
Your goal as a marketer is to be the world's best marketer for your company.
It offers rare insight into the aspirations of content marketing professionals.
Do you want to follow the content path upwards? Be the director of content, the head of content, the VP of content, the chief content officer.
If you love the intersection between art and science and the creative and the technical, this is exactly where you should be. This is the most fun you're gonna have in your career.
Content turns out to be this great superpower.
Hello, everyone. It's Amanda with the Content Marketing Institute. Thank you for joining me for our last Monday Ask the CM World Community live stream of 2022. Thank you so much for joining us. Each time we dive into a new topic with an awesome member of our CM World community, and today is no different. This live stream is brought to you by the Content Marketing Institute. And if you don't know what we do by now, we are the leading training and education organization for all things content marketing. You can head over to contentmarketinginstitute.com to see what we've been up to. If you've been joining me over the last few weeks, you've heard me talk about all the research we've been doing, our salary research, our B2B research, our video research. We also just released our content marketing predictions for 2023. We had over 80 content marketing experts share their insight, and we'll actually be discussing a lot of those right here on our live stream in January. So look for that. In the meantime, you can head over to the site and read those. And hopefully if you join us in January, you'll share your insights as well. All right, for today's live stream, do you ever think about some of the claims you're making every day in your marketing materials, like we're the fastest, we're the easiest to use, or we've got the most experience? We expect our consumers to believe all of these claims with usually very little or no proof. But as we all know, people are skeptical more than ever these days. So how can we convince consumers to trust us enough to try us? Well, we're going to try to tackle that today on how you can use content as evidence to back up all your marketing claims and gain consumer trust. As always, when you join me today, please give me a virtual wave, say hello, let me know where you're joining us from. And as always, if you guys ask questions, make comments, it always makes for a more engaging live stream. And we love to hear from all of you as well. So, all right, today, as I just said, your company is amazing. You say your company is amazing. Why should customers believe you? There are all kinds of shady advertisers out there these days. So if you want to stand out, you need to prove you are what you say you are. So in the new book, Prove It, by Melanie Deziel, she breaks down the step-by-step how-to guide to leverage every content marketing tool in the box to blast through all that consumer skepticism and get them to trust you. So joining me today is Melanie. She's a keynote speaker, award-winning content creator. She's a co-founder of The Convoy, a B2B marketing marketplace that pulls the buying power of independently owned business to help negotiate discounts and expenses. Hello, Melanie. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yes, very excited. So the new book, Prove It. We definitely all need to prove it these days. So trust. We know we should be trustworthy, right? But you say that's the most important KPI. Why is trust so important?
So the thing about trust is that it's actually, if you look at any other KPIs, like I'm not saying other KPIs aren't important, but most of the other KPIs that we're optimizing for, they sort of have trust as like a precursor, right? So if you think about you're trying to build subscribers as an example, people don't really subscribe and give out their email, or their other information to someone they don't trust. If you're trying to grow sales or increase the number of reviews, well, people aren't really excited to give over their payment information or their personal information to someone they don't trust. You're trying to build loyalty. If you've broken your trust with your consumers, they're not really likely to stay on, right? So any of the other KPIs that we're looking for, absolutely, we want to keep those measurable goals in mind. But the reality is that in many cases, we have not yet built or, really underscored the amount of trust we need in order to hit those KPIs, in order to get those other KPIs rolling. So we kind of want to think of trust as like the first step, like the little +1 for all of your KPIs that, increasing your trust is certainly going to help with all the others.
That's a great point. And in the book, you talk about 5 different marketing business claims we make in our marketing. What are some examples of those claims we're making and, need to address?
Yeah, so I go through like 5 different types. Now, not to say that there are other types of claims that can be made, but generally speaking, when we look at most of the business claims that we see, they fall into one of these 5 categories. So I'll run through them quickly just to give sort of an overview. It's really helpful as you're looking at your own content to try to find those claims. These are the kind of things you want to be looking for. So the first and most common are convenience claims. So convenience claims are any claims around how easy or simple your product is to use, how accessible or affordable it may be, how fast it works. So if you're talking about, how easy it is to make a return or how quickly people will see results, all of those things would fall into the category of convenience claims. You're claiming that it's convenient to work with you, to use your products, to use your services. The second one is comparability or comparability. There's some debate here, but basically what you're saying is this is how we measure up to the competition. So whether that's a specific competitor, you're saying, our product's more long lasting than this one, or you're talking about sort of a competitive set in general. This is how we stack up to other solutions or, others in the space. This is our general, comparative ranking. So those are comparability claims. So convenience, comparability. The next one is commitment. So commitment claims are when you're making any sort of claim about the things that are important to you. You could be saying we're committed to equal pay. We're committed to more sustainable practices.
Oh, no problem. It's that time of year.
So yeah, more sustainable practices. It's your way of saying these are our values.
I feel you. I feel you.
The next one is connection claims. So these are claims about relationships and how close we are to others. And then the last one is competence. So how well do we deliver on the promises that we make?
And so you talk about all these claims, which we all make, right, every day. And we're talking about content marketing, and everyone's talking about what kind of, what content should we be creating? And when I read your book, I was like, well, this makes really great sense when you're talking about, you said we have to create content, but what content are we creating, about? What are we creating it about? So to prove these claims, I'm sorry, Melanie's having such a hard. Yes, everyone's very sick these days. So Melanie talks about using content and to back up all of these claims. And there's specifically 3 types of content that you say we can use as evidence: corroborate, demonstrate, and educate. So are you going to explain maybe a couple of those?
I'll give it a shot. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, no problem.
So yeah, the 3 types of content, as you said, that work really well, all of those can be used to prove any of these different types of claims that we've made. So corroboration content is super important. it involves pulling in other people's perspectives. So that could be like testimonials, it could be customer case studies, could even be just like third-party reviews or rankings. It's your way of saying, you don't have to take my word for it. I'm backing it up with these other opinions. Then we have documentation, and this is really, our demonstration is really your way of saying, you don't have to take my word for it. You could see it. Like I'm showing it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the education is your way of saying, I want to help you understand this claim better so that you can then go on to believe it. It's good for really complicated, technical, heavily regulated claims, especially.
Gotcha. And it's all, I think a lot of times stuff we don't really think about, like we have the reviews, or we have the testimonials. So, but then it's kind of like, what do we do with them? So we have all this evidence. We want to start creating evidence to prove all of these marketing claims. So, where do we start? What are some first steps for starting to create identifying maybe what evidence we need to create, content we need to create, evidence we need to prove?
So the first thing you're going to want to do is just look at the content that you have. Look at your website, your blog, your emails, anything you're putting out, and just try to find some of those claims we talked about. Are you making convenience claims? Are you claiming how you stack up to the competition? Really just kind of see, what is it that I'm saying about myself? Because once you identify those claims, it becomes a lot easier for you to make a plan that says, here's the claims that we're making. Here's those 3 types of content we know really well to back up those claims and provide evidence. And then we can then make a plan to say, okay, for this claim, we're going to use this type. We know that this works really well. Or for this particular claim, because it's so important to us, like this is our primary claim, we're going to make sure we provide extra evidence of multiple types for that specific type of thing. So that audit of looking through your stuff and seeing like what are the claims we need to make, that's going to be the most important step to start, because that's really where it begins, right? That's where okay, this is how I prove it. Without that audit and that list of claims to prove, it's going to be tough for you to make any sort of headway on earning that trust.
We have a comment here from Asma who says, thank you for powering through despite all your discomfort, Melanie. Like literally, Melanie and I chatted for 15 minutes before we started and she was totally fine.
Totally fine.
So it's one of those things when you're sick like that. Kim says the evidence gives you insight into the content that you need to create, for sure. All right, so here's a final question. I've created this content. I have all this evidence I've created. So what are your thoughts on not only the best way to amplify this content and spread your message, but maybe like keep it going? I think you gave an example also in your book about how like some people have Yelp reviews from 6 years ago, but then they don't bother to like continue that. So maybe amplifying and then how to kind of continue that going.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is going to be to try to find a way to make a practice of it, because I think, like you said, it's really easy to focus on a particular marketing tactic for a short period of time and then kind of let it go because there's lots of other things for us to work on. But I think the most important thing is to find out, how can you build this into your everyday practices? So my favorite example is, I think corroboration is the easiest thing to like sprinkle throughout everything that you're doing. So think of it as like corroboration sprinkles on top of all the stuff you create. You're creating a case study. Can you add more quotes into it? You're putting something out on social. Can you add in additional context from, an industry expert or a report like the one we were talking about earlier, just from the intro, right? Is there an expert study or research that you can cite? So that's like a really easy first step to help you get into that routine. Anytime you're creating something, to just say, can I corroborate this? Can I add more corroboration and other opinions into this piece? And I think if you can kind of start to ask yourself that question as you're going through your different creation efforts, whether it's an email, social, web content, anything, it really allows you to shift your mindset to thinking, rather than just like creating proof now, how do I make the content that I create as a whole, this body of work that we're creating, how do we help that become evidence through the way that we put it together? And again, corroboration, I think, is probably the easiest one that you can sprinkle into just about anything that you're doing. But if you need something super tactical, like this is my favorite thing. Take a Post-it note, write, prove it on it, and put it on your desktop, put it on your laptop, like wherever your workspace is, just to remind yourself that like anytime I'm creating a piece of content, am I telling the audience something, or am I taking that extra step to really build the evidence and show them so they can believe it themselves?
That's a great tip, right? In the line of sight, then you can remember to prove it. So Melanie's book is, here we go again, Prove It. And if you'd like to buy it, you can, it's at major sellers like Amazon. You can go to Amazon, but also peoplewhoproveit.com. You can check it out there as well. Thank you so much, Melanie, for powering through.
And thank you all for your patience while a perfectly timed, little cough session.
Right when you're live, like what's the better time for that to happen?
Perfect little window.
Right? So yes, if you need something to do over the holidays, if you need a good book, it's a very easy read. I thoroughly enjoyed it, so I highly suggest you check it out. And she's got many other great, she goes in depth into everything and to prove it that we kind of touched on here today. If you have a marketer who needs another marketing book to read, there you go. So thank you so much, Melanie, for joining me today, even though you're sick. And thank you, everyone, for being here with us. And we will be back in the new year with all new episodes, I guess, of Ask the CM World Community Livestream. So have a great holiday.